Signs of the Gods by Erich von Daniken. Narrated by Peter Berkrot. Copyright 1979 by Erich von Daniken. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with the John W. White Literary Agency and was produced in the year 2011 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Keep listening after Signs of the Gods for a bonus interview with author Erich von Daniken. 1. In Search of the Ark of the Covenant. Agatha Christie, that incomparable detective story writer, once gave an interview in which she explained the ideal pattern for a good crime story. She said that only when suspicion was clearly proved, so that a criminal with a sound motive could be revealed at the end, was a story satisfying and exciting. But she added that the working out of the plot was only convincing if it left lingering doubts after the end of the story. Agatha Christie was talking about fictitious crime. I want to tell you about a crime which actually took place, but nevertheless fulfills all the conditions which the grand old lady laid down for a first-class detective story. For me, the crime began in a religion class. We were told that God commanded Moses to build an ark. We can read the instructions he was given in Exodus 25:10. However, they cannot have been purely verbal. He must have had a model of the ark. And look that thou make them after the pattern, which was showed thee on the mount. Exodus 25, verse 40. This ark is the material evidence involved in our crime. We must not lose sight of it. But although the crime is so incredibly old, experts are still arguing about it. Just as nowadays the family quarrels about the presumptive author of a crime in a TV series. What kind of object was the ark? Theologians, who at this point in the story assume the functions of police investigators, have very contradictory ideas about it. In Pierre's Universal Lexicon, the ark, also known as the Ark of the Covenant, is described as an acacia wood chest, 1.75 meters long, 1 meter high, and 1 meter wide, covered inside and out with gold. Professor Dr. Hugo Gressman, the well-known theologian, makes the chest quite a bit smaller, about 1.25 meters long, 0.75 meters high, and 0.75 meters wide. Precise but scanty details. We learn a good deal more in the Zohar, the most important of the Kabbalistic works, whose investigators showed more curiosity. In spite of the detailed information, the Zohar does not seem to have been included in the official reports, possibly because it was a secret Jewish work which appeared between AD 130 and 170. Yet it devotes nearly 50 pages to the Ark of the Covenant, and even gives minute details that escaped other criminologists. At first glance, it seems surprising that the Ark of the Covenant is introduced as the Ancient of Days in the Zohar, but a second glance makes it quite clear that the description refers to the Ark. The instructions in the Zohar are identical with the account in Exodus. Yahweh, the God of Israel, orders Moses to build a chest for the Ancient of Days, giving precise details. This container, together with the remarkable Ancient of Days, is to be taken on a journey through the desert. So far, no one has denied that the ark existed, but the experts differ about the measurements. The Theological Criminal Bureau also argues about the purposes of the mysterious chest. Rainer Schmidt claims that the ark was a container for a sacred stone. Martin Debelius contradicts him and says it was a mobile, empty divine throne, or a traveling divine car on which a divinity stood or sat. How are we going to find out more about our material evidence if the theologians are not even unanimous about what it was used for? The conviction that the Ark of the Covenant was empty because God lived in it, which the theologian R. Vodka threw into the debate in 1835, would make further research superfluous. Harry Torschner stated that the Ark of the Covenant contained protocols, including 2 of the tablets of the law given to Moses. Here, Harry Torschner parts company with his colleague Martin Debelius, who not only queries the accepted concept of Ark of the Covenant, but also doubts if Moses' tablets of the law were ever in the receptacle. Investigation of the weight of the mysterious ark is equally confusing. The prophet Samuel, who was also a judge and must have been an accurate observer by profession, writes, "Now therefore make a new cart, and take 2 milch kine, on which there hath come no yoke, and take the ark of the Lord, and lay it upon the cart, and put the jewels of gold, which ye return him for a trespass offering, in a coffer by the side thereof." Samuel, Book 1, chapter 6, verses 7 to 8. Judge Samuel even tells us about another cart for transporting the ark. "And they set the ark of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, that sitteth upon a hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart." Samuel, Book 2, chapter 6, verse 3. In spite of transport on 1 or 2 carts and the pulling power of 2 grown cows, the weight can hardly have exceeded 300 kilograms, for it was sometimes carried by the Levites, the priests in Yahweh's sanctuaries. "And it was so, that when they bare the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling." Samuel, Book 2, chapter 6, verse 13. Really, we ought to lecture the biblical criminologists about their disagreements, as Moses did in Leviticus, when he gave the priestly Levites their instructions. Lazarus ben David, 1762 to 1832, a philosopher and mathematician, lived in Berlin. He was head of the Jewish Free School and a very open-minded man. He was also editor of the celebrated Spencerschen Zeitung. Contemporaries of Ben David say that he was a well-known Jewish scholar and philosopher who had come to the conclusion that the ark in Moses' day contained a fairly complete system of electrical instruments and produced effects by them. Lazarus ben David was not only an intelligent man, he was also far ahead of his time. As an Orthodox Jew, had he read the Zohar? Did he come across the Ancient of Days in it? Did it make him suspicious? Was he dissatisfied with the research then known to him? Of course, he knew that only a fixed, clearly defined group of people was allowed access to the ark, and that even the high priests could not visit it every day, because the ark was dangerous. Ben David: "According to the Talmudists, mortal danger must always have been associated with these visits to the Holy of Holies. The high priest always entered with a certain fear, and thought it was a good day if he came back safely." The crime story gets more complicated. The Ark of the Covenant changed hands. After a victorious war, the Philistines, a Hebrew tribe of Western origin, confiscated the Ark of the Lord. They had noticed how important the mysterious apparatus was to the Israelites, and hoped to derive advantages from owning it. But the Philistines had no instructions for use. They were quite unfamiliar with it. At any rate, in a very short time they realized that anyone who came into close contact with the ark fell sick or died. They began to pass the apparatus they had requisitioned from town to town, like a hot potato, but everywhere it was the same story. All who were curious enough to approach the dubious booty were stricken with boils and scales, and their hair fell out. Children and adults, all were overcome by excruciating vomiting, and many perished in a horrible way. Judge Samuel was a witness. "They sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and they said, Send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it go again to its own place, that it slay us not, or our people. For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city. The hand of God was very heavy there. And the men that died were not smitten with the emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven." Samuel, Book 1, chapter 5, verses 11 to 12. The Philistines were in possession of the devilish object for 7 months. Then all they wanted was to get rid of their booty. They put the chest on a cart, harnessed 2 cows to it, and whipped the bellowing beasts to the borders of Beth-Shemesh. In the morning, when the men of Beth-Shemesh came into the valley to harvest the wheat, they saw the cart with the ark on it. They slaughtered the cows on the spot, and then summoned the Levites, who alone knew how to handle the ark. But 50,070 people, who had no idea how dangerous the ark was, died in a horrible way. They were curious and came too near the ark, and the Lord smote them. Samuel, Book 1, Chapter 6, verse 19. Now the ark was back in the hands of the people who built it, but we still do not know what this apparatus really was. The crime story continues, but a solution suggests itself. In 1978, a book called The Manna Machine, the joint work of George Sassoon, an electronics consultant, and Rodney Dale, a biologist and engineering writer, was published in London. These British investigators used the Zohar's very precise description of the Ancient of Days, which they interpreted and reconstructed in the light of present-day technical and biological knowledge. They decided that the Ark of the Covenant was actually a technical machine, as Ben David also assumed, that supplied the Israelites on their trek through the desert with a food rich in protein, namely manna. Now the inquiry has taken a giant step forward. The Ark of the Covenant equals the Ancient of Days equals the manna machine, a formula as faultless as the one times table. As technology is not exactly a special concern of theologians, we can remove them from the team of criminologists. It is now clear that the Ark of the Covenant was not the Holy of Holies, but the receptacle for a machine which produced food. That it could only be approached by the elect, i.e., those who were trained to operate it. That the curious who were rash enough to approach it fell ill or died, because the machine was highly radioactive. On the basis of the information we now have, the case of the Ark of the Covenant looks as follows. For unknown reasons, extraterrestrials were interested in separating a group of people from their environment and cutting them off from all contact with the rest of mankind for 2 generations. Through their intermediary, a prophet, they ordered the withdrawal from civilization of the chosen group. Moses, it may also have been another of the elect, led the Israelites through the wilderness. The extraterrestrials saved the nomadic people from their enemies, for the attacking Egyptians were drowned. And the waters returned, and covered the chariots, and the horsemen, and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. Exodus chapter 14, verse 28. The FBI, like any other group of qualified investigators, would dismiss the theories put forward by theologians to explain the above phenomenon as absolute nonsense. One of them claims that the Israelites marched through a sea thick with reeds or sandbanks at ebb tide, while the pursuing Egyptians were surprised by the waters of the flood tide. We can credit the chosen people with many special gifts, but we cannot imagine that the Egyptians, who first divided the year into 365 days after observing the regular advent of the Nile floods, did not know just as much about ebb and flood tides as the Israelites. No, the Egyptians did not rush blindly to their destruction. They were deliberately led astray by a mysterious angel, by a pillar of fire. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. Exodus chapter 14, verses 19 to 20. This cloud was not a chance meteorological phenomenon, as some scholars have suggested. Moses expressly says that the pillar of cloud was a signal to lead the Israelites. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud, to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night, from before the people. Exodus chapter 13, verses 21 to 22. Chance meteorological phenomena usually appear for seconds, minutes, or even hours, but not for months and years. This explanation simply does not stand up to examination. As we are not on the trail of an individual Israelite or a small group, we have a slightly easier task than criminologists, who have to try to uncover a narrow trail. Ahead of us lies the broad path left by a giant migration that wound slowly through the wilderness. The enemy were destroyed, the road was clear. Nevertheless, it was a tremendous undertaking to lead thousands of men, women, and children through territory where it was impossible to live on wild fruit or game. Even modern armies have come to grief for lack of fresh provisions. Temperatures in deserts, with their hostile environment, vary between 58 degrees Celsius and minus 10 degrees Celsius. Annual rainfall barely averages 10 centimeters. There are no natural products that could satisfy the hunger of a giant host, yet Moses risked marching his people through the endless burning wilderness. Who supplied the people of Israel with food? Extraterrestrials helped them, and Moses knew it. For the Lord, who appeared to him in the burning bush, showed him a machine that would take care of any worries about food supplies during the long years of the Exodus. It was a marvelous machine. It stored up water from the night dew, then mixed it with a microscopic type of green algae, chlorella, and produced as much food as was needed. There were complaints about having the same menu every day, but no one had to go hungry, as Moses pointed out when the people rebelled. The food synthesized from dew and green algae was produced by radiation. Radiation needs energy. Where could it be obtained in the barren desert? What kind of source of energy was it that was unexhausted after 40 years? Today we can erase the question mark. From our knowledge of existing technology, it can only have been a mini-nuclear reactor. Reactors of this type exist and have been in service for some time. We have known this since February 1978, from official sources. The Russian espionage satellite Cosmos 954 crashed in the countryside around the Great Slave Lake in Canada. The Strategic Bomber Command of the U.S. Air Force was alerted. Coded messages and orders went out to submarines at sea. Leave was stopped for all crews at rocket stations. The hotlines at NATO were glowing. Cosmos 954 was carrying more than 45 kilograms of radioactive uranium-235, a source of energy which, according to experts, could radiate for 1,000 years or more and contaminate country and people with poisonous radioactive clouds. When Cosmos 954 crashed, the reactor melted owing to frictional heat, and its deadly contents were released. After the politicians had shaken hands politely, reassurances were given. But their handshakes did not remove the radioactive emissions. They merely diffused the explosive political situation. Soon afterwards, the Indian government revealed that years before, the CIA had arranged for expert mountain climbers to take a mini-reactor to the Himalayas, where it would act as an inexhaustible source of energy for the devices which are listening into China around the clock. Mini-reactors release energy by the disintegration of plutonium. Radiation energy is transformed directly into electricity, a process which differs from that in large atomic power stations, which employ heavy water and fuel rods. The mini-reactor gives off radiation. It is dangerous, but not fatal, provided you do not stay close to it for too long. After all, the valiant mountaineers carried one to the Himalayas and came back safely. Mini-reactors will be an indispensable source of energy in the spaceships of the future. A machine that uses radiation to produce a protein-rich foodstuff from water and green algae will also be of the greatest importance for interstellar space travel. I am certain that the discoveries of Sassoon and Dale have already been closely examined by space travel experts. With a manna machine on board, the problem of a basic foodstuff for space travelers is solved. Obviously, the ark which the Lord showed Moses on the sacred mount could not be left out in the open. Perhaps it had to be protected from desert sandstorms. Perhaps the very high daytime temperatures were harmful to it. Perhaps, too, the wandering Israelites were not supposed to know about the mysterious factory which produced their food. At any rate, an ark, a beautifully made chest, was built around it, following the model and instructions given. Therefore, the Ark of the Covenant was not the manna machine, but merely the container in which it was preserved and transported. The twofold goal was reached. The sensitive machine was protected from both damaging outside influences and inquisitive glances. During long rest periods, a tent was erected around the factory. It was never set up inside the camp because of the dangerous radioactivity. Now Moses used to take the tent and to pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. Exodus chapter 33, verse 7. Let us keep on the trail of our material evidence. We already know quite a lot about it, including how it worked. When Sassoon and Dale reconstructed the machine, following the book of Zohar, they learnt that the Ancient of Days indefatigably turned out the glutinous foodstuff, manna, for 6 consecutive days, a 6-day week. The machine was cleaned on the 7th day. This maintenance work was performed by the Levites, who had been instructed by Aaron, Moses' brother. Aaron had climbed the mount with Moses and had obviously been given a crash course. The Lord had instructed him, "And the Lord said unto him, Away, get thee down, and thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron with thee. But let not the priests and the people break through to come up unto the Lord, lest he break forth upon them." Exodus chapter 19, verse 24. What conclusions can be drawn at this stage of the investigation? The extraterrestrials escorting the wandering people wanted to separate a group from their environment. The extraterrestrials did not possess a fleet of shuttlecraft, otherwise they would have transported their protégés by spaceship. The extraterrestrials who landed were few in number. When their spaceship touched down on the mount, the commander expressly ordered Moses to have a fence built round the mountain, so that no one could break in. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. And Moses said unto the Lord, The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for thou didst charge us, saying, Set bounds about the mount and sanctify it. Exodus chapter 19, verses 21 to 23. The small group of extraterrestrials demonstrated their superiority with technological tricks. The pillar of fire that guided the Israelites and the drowning of the Egyptian army. The spaceship's drive unit emitted burning hot gases and made a terrifying noise. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. Exodus chapter 19, verse 18. A food-producing machine was unloaded from the spaceship and handed over to Moses and Aaron. When the machine was transported, it was put in a container, the ark. The machine was carried on a cart yoked to oxen, but cannot have weighed more than 300 kilograms, because it was occasionally carried by men with poles on their shoulders. People who rashly came too near the ark fell ill, died, or were smitten with boils, scales, and pustules. No one knew what was transported in the ark. The people only knew that the Lord supplied them with food. The tabernacle in which the ark stood concealed a secret. The specially trained Levites, wearing protective clothing, looked after its maintenance, but even they did not know what kind of machine it was. They were afraid of it, and with good reason, for there were accidents in which priests too were killed. That is as much as we can say at the present stage of our investigation of the case of the Ark of the Covenant. What happened next? What became of the Ark and its mysterious contents? Where did it end up? Is it still in existence? Can we find it again? How? A monstrosity of that size and weight cannot have vanished into thin air. Let us continue our tracking. We can conclude from the description in Exodus that the machine functioned as long as it was serviced regularly. After the return to the Promised Land, it was no longer necessary, for milk and honey flowed there, a change in the monotonous menu at last. However, there were probably rumors that the homecomers had taken on their trek a strange object that supplied them with food. Industrial espionage began. Every monarch wanted to possess the tireless machine. We have noted the Philistines' victorious battle against the Israelites and the capture of the machine, which they returned after a series of disasters. What was the fate of the ark when it was deposited in Beth Shemesh? It was kept in a hut for at least 20 years. And the men of Kirjath Jearim came, and fetched up the ark of the Lord, and brought it into the house of Abinadab in the hill, and sanctified his son to keep the ark of the Lord. And it came to pass, while the ark abode in Kirjath-jearim, that the time was long, for it was 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. Samuel Book 7, verses 1-2. Obviously, the machine was no longer working. No one bothered about it, and it was completely forgotten. It was Saul, the first king of Israel, who lived about 1000 B.C., who reminded his son-in-law, King David, 1013 to 973 B.C., about the ark that had aroused so much attention in its day. When David began to take an interest in the mysterious object, it was still in Abinadab's hut, just as it had been delivered to him. His curiosity was aroused, but it did not occur to him to transfer the ark to a worthy home in the palace he was just having built. Perhaps he was frightened by the hair-raising stories which circulated about it. Perhaps he did not consider the monster important enough to build a special room for it. In any case, it was quite a while before he followed his royal father-in-law's tip and went with 30,000 men to Baal of Judah to bring up from thence the ark of God. Samuel Book 2, chapter 6, verse 1. During the removal, another spectacular accident happened. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in Gibeah. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart, and Ahio went before the ark. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God, and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God. Samuel Book 2, chapter 6, verses 3-7. A new hint in our search for the machine. It still gave electric shocks after 20 years of disuse. In other words, the mini-reactor was still radiating energy. Very important for our further pursuit of the ark. Minor mishaps were overcome, and the ark and its contents reached Jerusalem safely. King David was so happy about it that he danced for joy. He took off his clothes and leapt about stark naked. The joy of ownership? Or did he hope to please Yahweh so that he could set the machine going again? Did he want to conjure up manna for his people? Although he was proud of having the ark, David would not agree to keep it in his palace, nor did he have a temple built for it. And they brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in his place, in the midst of the tabernacle that David had pitched for it. Samuel Book 2, chapter 6, verse 17. Once again the mysterious object was shrouded in silence until David's successor, King Solomon, about 965 to 926 B.C., had the ark placed in the Holy of Holies, a specially protected room in the temple. There it remained inviolate for more than 300 years of wars and disasters in the kingdom of Israel. During this period of time, looters stole precious stones and gold from the temple on at least 4 occasions, but the ark was untouched. At any rate, it is no longer mentioned in the Chronicles. Looters also took less precious artifacts than jewels. Had they no idea of the ark's existence? Were they afraid of its mysterious contents? Had the Israelites hidden it as a highly prized souvenir of their desert trek? Did no one know where it was? Is that the reason why its traces were obliterated for so long? At all events, we can deduce from another passage in the Bible that little importance was attached to it. Put the holy ark in the house which Solomon the son of David king of Israel did build. It shall not be a burden upon your shoulders. Chronicles, Book 2, chapter 35, verse 3. It is suspected that the ark got lost during the destruction of Jerusalem, 586 B.C. We must also follow up this hint, however complicated the investigation may be. We must not throw in the sponge too soon. But first, a second progress report. The machine no longer produced manna. No one knew how to work it. In spite of a long time in store, the mini-reactor still functioned. The electric current it produced was strong enough to kill Uzzah on the spot when he touched the ark. 3 kings, Saul, David, and Solomon, were afraid of the ark and concealed it. With the passage of time, the ark lost the religious significance it had had during the journey through the wilderness. The extraterrestrial...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?